Welcome, welcome, Luke. Welcome episode of Wisconsin Foodie Live. We're here. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon. How you doing, Luke? What's going on, man?
Well, I'm happy to say that I'm back in Wisconsin. Los Angeles was great, and man, oh man, did we do a good service out there by bringing the love and care and respect of this place to the good people of LA. But there's no place like home, right?
I bet.
Dorothy wasn't kidding. So I'm actually upstairs in the office of the Driffles Cafe today, and I've got an event this weekend at L'Etoile where we're going to do a benefit for the good people of the World Street Kitchen and the Ukrainian event. Um, so you're gonna have to bear with me a little bit today, and I'm gonna apologize when I'm not speaking. I'm gonna mute my mic so that way you don't get the phone call ringing off the hookup. Arthur, your puppy. It's
This
about
is
the
the way
same.
it
It's like
goes, man. This is
one bark,
this is
one
this
wink.
is live. This is not this is as real as it gets here. I mean, look at me. I didn't get the chance to shave for the public or put do my hair up. So I mean, this is the real deal. This is behind the scenes Wisconsin Foodie. This is pretty much what we look like 24/7 when we're when we're not on camera or in meetings here. So this is it. This is what you guys get. But so LA was good. Dinner was good. This weekend you've got a great dinner. You're cooking a good dinner over at L'Etoile for the World Kitchen, which is a fantastic organization run by Jose Andres. The kitchen goes out and is responsible for feeding people in these kind of dire situations. I know that he's won countless awards, humanitarian awards, and everything you could imagine for the work that he's done. I know in Puerto Rico after the hurricane, and been work in the Ukraine. So talk a little bit about that event this weekend. It's a lot of high caliber chefs, right?
Yeah. So for those of you who have been following along in the culinary world, Wisconsin had a multitude. What's up, Ilya? Had a multitude of James Beard nominees this year, which was absolutely fantastic. There are so many people doing wonderful things in the community here. So what Tori Miller, former James Beard winner and owner of L'Etoile and Grays in Madison, has done is he's amassed all of the nominated chefs in the state come together and do this dinner that supports the World Kitchen. Did I ever tell you about this time that Jose Andres kissed me?
No.
True story.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah, we were working together. We were lobbying on farm bill stuff in Washington D.C. And I started doing like I do, like food church in this group setting where I was talking about the passion of all these farming communities in Wisconsin and how important a lot of this policy really is for shaping agriculture in Wisconsin, but also maybe the non-conventional agriculture, like the piece that we're going to discuss today, and making sure that all of these farmers' stories are heard and they are vibrant and they are represented in this huge piece of legislation, and how important it is that we lift people up with our work. And apparently what I was talking about really caught Jose, and he grabbed me, and he's got these giant bear paws. Like he's a pretty big man. And he grabbed me on both sides of my head, and he planted a huge kiss like right in the middle of my forehead. And I was just moved. I thought it was really awesome.
You've been knighted.
Yeah, I've been knighted. And then we both hung out while Tom Colicchio close talked to us. He's a very close talker. So we both spent our time in the corner with Tom, which is fun. Also a titan in the food world. So
I think that's a story in itself. I mean, I thank you for all that work that you do, Luke, outside the off camera. I mean, there's a lot that I think you do, we all do, to try to advocate for our local farmers and for our restaurants and chefs, and I mean that's a huge stage, huge opportunity. So that's incredible.
Well, thanks. I want to say actually thank you. Am I super glitchy?
kind
my
of,
video
but I'm just kind of used to it. It's all good.
okay. I twitch and glitch a lot naturally, so whatever. Um,
I
but
think it's
I
maybe net
really
connection, but whatever. We're
probably
all
I'm up
good.
in the office. Okay, I do want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I know that I texted you this last night when I watched the episode, but this episode for me as a human being has exponentially been the most powerful episode I've ever had the opportunity and privilege to take part in. We tell stories all the time, and we put a spotlight on food producers, farmers, and chefs in Wisconsin and even in other parts of the Midwest and the world. But this one, um, based on a conversation that was basically had at me when I was a college student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison by a super powerful woman in the School of Social Work. Her name was Ada Deer. Her name is Ada Deer. She's the former Secretary of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. She's a Menominee Nation member. And she was teaching this class. And because I was in her class and I was moderately articulate, but also because I think I was a white male, in one of the first sessions that this class met, she got about 3 inches from my face and she screamed, "If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention." And when you're 22 years old and you hear those words, they maybe don't hold the same meaning as when you're 42 years old and your awareness of the world around you and how people are still fighting the fight absolutely everywhere in the world to be seen, to be recognized, to be loved, to be cared for with compassion and grace. And, you know, Arthur, like you bestowing this platform um, to a human like me is a dream come true because it helps me do the very important and very necessary work of trying to lift people up that live around us and have lived around us since before time was measured. And I am so thankful. I'm so thankful. I cried. I cried last night watching the episode, and I rarely, you know, for those of you who've seen this live stream before, you maybe have heard me say I don't usually see the edits before they go out. So we kind of experience this all at the same time. And there's a part of me that has a little bit of a resistance to watching myself or listening to myself on camera. It's gotten better as I age in this role. But I think last night I was just so anxious and excited to see how this story came together. And you and Nelson and Dan and Pat, the shooters, this thing has been a dream. It's gorgeous, and I feel so honored to be a part of it. So thank you for that opportunity.
Oh, thank you for that, Luca. It's all teamwork, man. We make such a good team here, and I hate to spend everybody's time talking, you know, us talking about each other like this. But I mean, honestly, also the real magic comes to our one of our cinematographers, Dan. I mean, this was one of his. You know, he went off, and typically I'm on set and I'm helping direct and shoot or whatever needs to be done, produce. And I was not able to make this shoot, and Dan was there, and he did just a fantastic job. So hats off to Dan, the cameraman, because he did a really, really fantastic job. Right, Luke, before we bring on our special guests today, I just kind of want to let everybody know that, you know, we are probably around 4 episodes away from being done with the season. We've got a really, really fantastic episode coming up next week. It's a little bit of a change of pace. It's we feature Ruby Coffee Roasters and Del Bar in the Wisconsin Dells area and Mirror Lake. So really fantastic episode. If you guys stick with us through the rest of the show, you will be treated to the trailer for that episode. But right now, we're also looking for suggestions. This is the time, you know, that Luke and I kind of get together and bunker down and figure out what next season is going to be. We have a lot of great ideas so far, but we are waiting for, you know, we are looking for suggestions. So if you guys have suggestions of places we should go, you can send us an email through our website, wisconsinfoodie.com. You can send it in the chat here. You can send us a message through social media. We're all ears, and a lot of the times the way we find our stories are people like you. So if you've got a good story for us, send it along. Without any further ado, I would like to welcome our guests, Laura Manthe and Jen Falck, who you saw on last night's episode where we profiled the Oneida white corn growers. Laura, Jen, welcome to the show.
Oh,
hi! Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Wolf Clan in the house. What up?
Who's in the house?
That's so great. I can't.
So what did you guys think? I mean, first and foremost, what did you guys think of the episode last night? We always wonder, our goal is to do these stories justice, and this was a big story to tell as filmmakers, as storytellers. And this is one that we wanted to make sure that we told the right way, and I hope we did that. So this is your opportunity. If we did something wrong or we said something wrong, or you can scold us, or but hopefully we did this story justice.
I'll let Jen go first.
I to be honest, this was my first TV experience, so I was pretty nervous. But I think you guys did great. Like Laura said earlier, you didn't show our ugly cries, which we appreciate. But I think you handled the story well. I think it was, sometimes it's not handled well, these stories. And no, I think you guys did a great job. I will say the only thing I wish that would have stayed in is that pork hock was raised on this farm, and that hit the floor. So
I'm so sorry.
Other than that, it was great.
I love it.
God, I can remember you saying that, and I felt like it was in, but obviously somehow I'm gonna blame it on the other editor, Nelson. It's
Okay.
definitely his fault.
The one who's not here.
So,
but that's usually something we like to, I think that's such a great story when everything in that soup, from the ham to the ashes, comes from basically your area, your home. I mean, that's always such a cool story.
so I
wish
had
I
to
could have
watch.
tasted that.
It was good. I had to watch the show on YouTube because I don't have a TV.
Yeah.
So the commercials were at just the best parts when I started to cry. I was like, "Oh, good time for a commercial."
Oh, really? So YouTube put the ads in right at the most emotional points.
Totally. Like without fail. I saw the beautiful rows of corn in your hands, Laura. And like we just went through that super emotional scene out in the field, and what is it? Was it H4 or 4H? What was the name of the field?
4-H, yeah.
4-H. And I was firing up the waterworks too, watching it. And like then it went to like a Reese's peanut butter cup with potato chips in it, and it was like, oh God, I could use a few of those right now, just like eating my feelings with it. I didn't, but
Yeah.
I was with you.
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it, and I showed a lot of my friends here at this, and they're both really, and I mean, they're quite often, but like here.
So, Jen, I want to ask you a question. Like, how does it feel? I mean, obviously, I understand how it feels to watch yourself on television. It's wild. It's weird. It's not something that I think most people are really used to. But you had said, we told the story well, and that's not something that everyone does. What was it like for you to watch the story unfold? Did it feel like were you really, obviously we relived the time that we shared together, but there's such an emotional connection to the corn and like the stories that surround the corn and all of the beautiful tradition. How was it to see it in the world for people outside of the Oneida?
I think that first, Laura and Becky did such a great job in the beginning, and the words they chose they were perfect because there obviously this is more than food we eat. There's a lot to this. And one of the, especially for Becky, Laura, and I, one of the major elements to this experience we've been through is that we didn't grow up with corn. And there's a lot of shame and baggage and fear when you start tackling those issues. And I've said many times, no one in my family has washed corn in probably 100 years. And so I think that Laura and Becky did a great job of expressing that, describing what that experience is, because it's really emotional.
That's
Laura,
so profound. I mean,
Go ahead, Arthur.
I just, I mean, what was the inspiration to find these foodways again? To go back to these traditional foodways. If you did not grow up with it, what was that inspiration to discover it, to search it out, and to really focus on it?
Well, we're very spoiled in Oneida because our community never stopped growing our white corn. So when our people were removed from New York after the Revolutionary War, they came to Wisconsin on this rickety boat called Walking Water. And some Oneida people got off in Ontario, Canada, and said, no way, this boat is going to sink. So there's Oneida people that live in the tent right now, and they've always, been there since after the war. And then our relatives continued on to the Bay of Green Bay. And when they got off the boat, it was fall, and they had to decide, were they going to eat the seeds that they carried with them, or were they going to save them and plant them for springtime? And we were lucky that they decided to plant them, because that's the same corn that we grow today. So, so we have this huge, really rich history and corn that sustained our community. And then the tribal program Junhenqua started after a group of community members, like-minded like ourselves, started Iroquois farms. And then from Iroquois farms grew the Junhenqua farm, and Junhenqua grew white corn. And my kids worked there during the summer times. They did internships there. And so we were always really involved with what happened at the farm. And then my daughter got a job with the Intertribal Agriculture Council, and she did a tour of New York, which was good for her to go back to the home, reestablish relationships with our relatives out east. And she came home and she told me that one of the communities, none of the members grew their white corn, that there was a non-Indian person that grew corn, and they bought it from that person. And I lost my mind. Like that's it. We're growing white corn, and that's actually why we started growing white corn. It's not that I didn't have access to it. I did, but after we started talking as a group, we decided that we didn't want to rely on a tribal program to feed us, that we wanted to feed ourselves. And we're so fortunate that my daughter created those alliances and relationships with our relatives out east, because they really are our mentors, and they really helped us out along the way.
So what's the connection between Oneida and corn? Is there a pretty deep connection there with the tribe and that particular ingredient and product?
Yes. Well, we have, so corn is part of our creation story. So everything that we talk about happening here on this planet also happens in the spirit. So the seeds came from the spirit world with the sky woman. And so corn is part of who we are, cosmology, through the cosmos. And so we have this really strong cultural identity to the corn. And then if you read some of the papers that the settlers wrote about our people were studied quite a bit. Parker on the Iroquois is a book that you could look at. And it talks about the varied diet that we had when we lived in our homelands in New York. And we ate 3,000 different things, berries, nuts, roots, fish, birds, animals, whatever. But for some reason, corn is the one that our group clearly identifies with, as well as the beans. That's where Becky really stepped up, and then Jen really stepped up with squash. So that's our three sisters, the corn, beans, and squash.
I think you're muted, Luke.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I have a question, and this is one that I think is so poignant, because I think last night, when people watched the episode, they really understood how historically corn is the way to relate the Oneida Nation and the cosmology of the Oneida people um, to where we are today. But Jen, if you could for 1 second, can you talk to me about how the corn is part of the story for the future? Because right now you put this story into motion. We put it into motion in the world at large. So people of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, religions have now had a chance to access this and will continue to. What does it mean for the future of the Oneida people? This beautiful white corn.
Well, I think that, and I have to start in the past, because as I said, in my family in particular, I didn't grow up with this. I didn't have access to this. It's been a journey for me. My goal in life was to raise a child here, and I have, and she's very familiar with corn and our culture, and so that's moving forward. Her family will now forever be connected back here, and because my familial lines were severed in most ways, but we also want to be able to share this food and this story with everyone. And it's not, I don't want to say it's reserved for us. It certainly is our story, but it's a good story, and there are a lot of good lessons and ways to be and ways to live that we certainly want to share with everyone.
So I think the future of our really grown a lot for women driving tractors and learning how to process corn and what to do with the corn after you pick it. There's been done. It's been out for the future. We're thinking about where we go to corn sites and people for the corn, and then to the
Hey, Laura, I think we're losing you a little bit on your internet connection. I feel bad here. Is it just me, or do you, Luke, and do you guys see that as well?
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, everybody's losing Laura a little bit. Sorry, Laura. There's times where it's good, and there's times where it's not so good. Probably better right now. I apologize. This isn't a
It's
quick
like
science.
hanging out with me. That kind of takes me to another question, Jen, and I literally could fire questions at you all day, because so in transparency, shooting this episode for me was extremely eye-opening, because sitting with Dr. Tony House, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, one of the other members of Ohelagu that I met at Farm Aid. And when we were in Jen's garden, after we had kind of wrapped the shoot, she had been trying over the course of like 3 days to share pieces of the creation story, the Oneida creation story, where sky women fell from the sky, and she carried seeds with her, and how she landed on the back of a turtle, and then the muskrats went down to the bottom and brought up soil, and the cosmology of what we know and see around us today through this storytelling. And there was one point, and I asked a question, and it was all in sincerity. It was all in sincerity. My questions were just trying to better understand where we were coming from. And she was very patient with me, and she was so kind. But she said, Luke, that's your colonial thinking getting in the way with what you feel right here. It's this story that you've been told. And I left the garden that day at your house, Jen, and I was shaken because I think, like most people, I had never really considered myself to hold the values of not racism, but I do think like you never really consider the ingrained patterns that we all carry in us. And then a year later, like the Black Lives Matter movement happens, and all of a sudden, all the systemic racism pieces are put out in front of us, and it really has pushed me to examine my own path through like these feelings of colonialism and like being better, teaching my kids better, teaching the kids around me better, teaching my cooks better, being mindful if I'm cooking an ingredient that comes from our brothers and sisters in the Indigenous movement, to not sully it with symbols of colonialism. You know, don't, you know, and it's sometimes it's challenging, I can say, as a human, but it should be challenging. So you made reference to the fact that we told the story well. And in some of the work that I've done with other boards and members of the Ho-Chunk Nation, you know, we kind of sometimes joke about the fact that most people don't consider themselves racist, or most people don't hold on to these outdated ways of thinking that keep us in boxes. What does it mean to not share this story well, to not tell it well, so that we can help people who are watching this now tell it with the right intention in their hearts?
Yeah, I think there's a big question, but I know Laura and I both we've been exposed to and seen these stories not told well. And I think the first word that comes to my mind is tokenism. We really repel that kind of feeling when we feel as though the story is told as a token. We aren't responsible for your comfort. And so if the story makes you uncomfortable, it probably should. We lost a lot. Our ancestors, our families, our grandmas and aunties lost a lot. And it was fairly easy for them to lose it and very, very difficult for us to regain it. And so when the story isn't told holistically, I think that's when the story fails. Yes, it's wonderful what we've done, and what the episode last night showed was great success. But you have to be cognizant of the fact that there is a lot of trauma and terrible stuff that happened, and you've just got to be uncomfortable and work your way through it. And so when you get to tell both of those elements, the good and the bad, that's when the story is told well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. That, and really, really important. Really important. I think.
No, you know, I love to know, you know, personally, how people that may have watched last night's episode, how can they experience this for themselves? What's the best way to experience this? You know, because I'm sure we have so many people out there that would love to support, you know, would love to, you know, try these dishes, would love to do whatever they can to help, you know, further this cause and this story that may not be a part of, you know, the tribe. You know, what would you recommend people that may be interested in being a part or taking part or experiencing something like that? What would be your best advice for them?
I was going to throw this to Laura. So Laura, let's see how your technology is working.
Sure. So we do welcome a lot of visitors to our barn in October. The entire month of October, we are working every day, usually 10 to 12 hours a day. So if you work first shift, you can still swing by in the evening and hang out with us and do some work with us. If you have daytime open, you can, you know, participate in the harvest of hand picking the corn with us. You just have to contact us and let us know when you're interested in coming so that we can make sure that we have everything in place for you.
That's fantastic. And how can people get a hold of you? Do you guys have a Facebook page, or do you have an email address, how would you like people to reach out to you?
We do have a Facebook page. It's Ohelagu Among the Cornstalks. And if you send me a message, I will reply to you.
Fantastic.
You do.
And we'll make sure, once we get a little closer to October, we'll connect and we can get that information on our Facebook page and share it with everybody, because I think there'd be a lot of people out there that'd be interested in helping out and taking part of that process.
Great.
Arthur's got a puppy.
It's the longest
Yeah.
half an hour of my life here as just trying to get through this.
No, so as you see the indigenous food movement, which is something that I keep my eyes peeled towards all the time, what Sean's doing or Brian's doing, or even Dan Cornelius is doing, all these rock stars in the upper Midwest, like actually flexing. What does that mean? Not even what does it mean? How does it make you feel, Jen, to see these indigenous food warriors kind of coming out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden, like, there's conversation around it? And Sean's restaurant, Awamni, is probably one, if not the best restaurant in the United States right now. And he's cooking with his whole heart through that lens. Does it fill you with hope? I mean, I know that there's so much pain and trauma surrounding it, but man.
No, for sure it does. It's very empowering to know that. I mean, dang, there were so many James Beard nominations in the indigenous food world. It was unbelievable. There is no sign of slowing down. I think that in my work life, I work in the world of the indigenous producers and farmers. And so, the more of us there are in the world, the better the Sean's and the Elena's and all the other chefs can get product. And so we are rebuilding this food system, this indigenous food system, including its trade routes and everything that goes with it. And it's super exciting. And so when those chefs get the attention that they've been getting, it's the payoff for sure.
Oh, that's so great. I've done a little bit of press recently, and I had a writer from Kentucky contact me, and somehow through the channels, she had been talking with a Cherokee woman in Oklahoma, Burning Cedar Foods, who's also an indigenous chef, and kind of embodies some of the work that Elena Terry. I really want to give a shout out to her right now. Chef Elena Terry of Wild Berries in Wisconsin Dells, a proud member of the Ho-Chunk Nation. Keep up the amazing work that you're doing. People are paying attention, and it means so much to so many people around you that you may not ever know, but it's work that I watch very closely and carry it with me in my heart wherever I go, because I feel like it's very, very important to represent the best that I can, the non-tokenized aspects of indigenous culture all around me. But Sean, they're talking about doing indigenous food labs all over the United States and setting them up so that each culture, each tribal culture and region has this connective piece that they can point to that reunites it. What's one of the best stories of reunification that the corn has brought you, Laura? Like, have you seen, I mean, obviously your daughter going to work for the Intertribal Agricultural Council is a big deal. But how is the corn brought medicine together for your heart?
So that would be with Braiding the Sacred. So Braiding the Sacred is a nonprofit organization that helps all indigenous people that are corn growers in their communities. And so Oneida Ohelagu was able to host one of at our first harvest, we were able to host the Braiding the Sacred. So we got to meet with all of the other tribes in the region that were corn growers and teach them what we knew. And we were also had some Haudenosaunee people come from New York, Mohawks and Onondagas, and they really helped us by, they're still mentoring us, but they really helped us our first year get off the ground, get our harvest done safely, do a lot around food safety for caring for the corn so it doesn't get moldy. better care for our fields. They've really changed the way that we think about caring for our fields when the corn is growing. And they're super supportive of what we're doing. So that relationship is still ongoing, and I would consider it permanent relationship. Braiding the Sacred have been hosted at 3 other Haudenosaunee communities, and we were present at each one of those. We went to Onondaga for Braiding the Sacred. We went to Akwesasne in New York, Mohawk Territory, and then we went to Cayuga Territory in New York around Cayuga Lake. And it's just amazing for us to reconnect with our relatives. So without growing this corn, we would not have this connection. We wouldn't know any of these people. We would be doing our regular stuff that we were doing before we started growing corn. Like, I used to be an avid sailor. I have not sailed since we started growing corn.
Ain't no time for that.
You know, so and so other people have had to give up a lot to care for the corn because it's so many hours of work. And one of the really great things that Jen said at one of our first year meetings was, I didn't know this was a year-long thing. I thought it was just during the growing season, because we didn't know, right, Jen? We didn't know how to take over.
Mm-mm.
And, you know, we were having meetings in December, January, February, when normal people are looking at seed catalogs and dreaming about the future. You know, we're on the ground, we're meeting, we're you know, working out any kind of interpersonal issues that we have, talking about our budget, talking about what needs to be maintained.
We have to finish weighing corn today. That's where I'm headed this afternoon.
Wow.
And that's season. So like the work never ends. And our relationship with our relatives out east is so much stronger than it was prior. And you know, the spiritual connection is so much stronger as well. So I can't say enough good things and encourage enough Native people to find out what their traditional foods were for their community.
Mm-hmm.
And find the people that still grow them, mentor with them, and start growing your own foods. It will change your life.
Yeah,
Does the Oneida have an annual sort of feast, an annual get together where all the food, you know, is coming to the table? Do you guys do anything like that?
The youth do that at the school, at the turtle school. They grow in the garden all summer, and then they have a family feast. But there's not a community feast outside of ceremonial.
Sure. If you guys don't mind, we've got a couple of questions here. Cheryl Kuhn, who's always fantastic asking questions. She's asked, you know, how is the corn preserved in the jars?
You want me to take that, Laura? So the corn that I was cooking last night, that's just kernels off the cob, and that's how we store in those jars. So that's one way we preserve, and that corn will keep for years like that. The next method, you can cook the corn like I did last night, hull it, dehydrate it, and then put it in a jar, and it'll keep like that for a long time. And then when you go to use it, it's ready to go. It just needs to cook for like an hour, so it saves you a little time. And we also make a flour, and then that we make a corn bread with, that we didn't get an opportunity to talk about last night in the show, but that's a boiled wheel of corn bread with beans in it. And then we'll also do a mush flour. So another popular food dish that we make is corn mush. So think grits, like corn grits boiled in water. We do the same thing, and then add nuts and berries and maple syrup and those sorts of things. So those are the primary ways that we preserve.
So we're really interested in getting the wet corn grinder that they use in Latin food or Mexican food to make tortillas or masa. So we really want to get a wet corn grinder and start making. So we want to diversify how we eat our corn.
In case anyone wants to buy us one.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure
Any of you lovely people.
I wrote it down.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. somebody out there, Foodie, Wisconsin Foodie Nation, buy these lovely folks their grinder. I mean, seriously. Another question we've got here is, what are some of the other dishes? And I know you just kind of touched on it all, but what are some of the other dishes and things made with the corn and cornmeal?
Well, Jen covered pretty good how we do that in our. So it's corn mush flour, cornbread flour, making the corn fresh for the soup, which is called fresh hulled. That's what you guys made, and then dehydrating the corn so that you can store it for a long term. And then when you want to use it, it's really easy to use. Mm-hmm. And so the cornbread or the cornmeal that we make is not like the kind that you bake in the oven that turns into kind of like a cake. Ours is boiled, so it's a totally different experience. It's not one that you can find anywhere. We can also take the corn bread flour and make dumplings with it, smaller little round balls that are boiled and then added to soup, and that's also amazing. And you can add fruit to that as well. We did a workshop with the youth at Maple Sugar Camp in March of 2020, and we added blueberries to the flour and we boiled it in maple sap water, and it was really good.
That sounds awesome.
Dang, where was I?
I think we need to set up a showcase of all of these different foods and just have an event where you guys we just have preparations of all these different, these dishes and get to share them with everybody, because that sounds incredible.
Jen, what were you saying?
We didn't talk about green corn. So in the middle of summer, the corn hits a phase we call green corn, or when it's a little more like a sweet corn. So it's got a milk stage, and we'll pick some corn then, and we will grill it. So Laura and Robin scored us this giant grill, and we'll be out at the barn grilling corn, and then we just cut it off the cob and it goes in the freezer, and it's got that nice char on it. That's good in a lot of things. There is a soup that a lot of folks make around here, like a Three Sisters version of soup with that. But I put it in a lot of any Mexican dish that or Latin dish that calls for corn. That's typically what I'll put in there. It's delicious.
Yeah, but so the green corn chili. Mm-hmm. It's a white chili base with tomatillos and that charred corn, and it's amazing.
Yeah. When you were mentioning earlier about the food like showcase, it reminded me, Laura, we all had an opportunity to travel to Ecuador a few years ago. And the first full day we were there, we went to a thing just like that. And man, this town, there must have been 40 corn dishes. And it was crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
But that was another great experience that we've had.
Well, if you guys want to participate, if you guys want to do that someday, you let us know, and we will do whatever we can to help you organize that. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, I'd be there. Mush. I want to go back to mush because I think that there's something you kind of mentioned, grits, right?
Yeah.
And the difference being usually grits, I think in like Southern culture, kind of trend on being savory.
Exactly.
They're usually like salty, or folks will put butter or cheese or whatever in them to make them more of a savory element. But in Oneida culture, y'all put maple in them. Is that correct? So it's almost like the cream of wheat, but the same culture or the consistency, but it's sweet. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're in Florida right now, and Robin orders grits when we go to the restaurant, and they're expecting him to like put salt and pepper on it and butter. And then he asks for a side of hot blueberries that they might be using for their pancakes. And then the waitresses watch him stir it all together and they're horrified. The cooks come out from the kitchen. Like, who is that guy?
What is that man doing to his grits?
Well, I would say on the list of horrifying things that Robin could do or does do, that's pretty low on it.
Excellent point.
Yeah, I love. Oh man, Robin was the the humorous catalyst, because in shooting this, honestly, like every scene.
Who is Robin, by the way? Who
So
is
Robin, there he is. Look at him over there. Gun show, yeah. Robin, the gun show John. I love him. So we were going from these scenes where we met at Becky's house first, very emotional. You're walking through, you're really starting to get the brevity of this shoot and like, okay, I'm carrying this one. Then we went out into the field with Laura. And again, that was like, I don't know if people out there heard, but when she was talking about grandmother corn and these individual husks on these kernels, and now it's the ancestral DNA of all corn on the planet. And there just happened to be some very well-timed geese flying over, and the wind of autumn is rustling through the corn stalks. If you could keep a dry eye through that, you may want to check your pulse because you may not be alive. I know that even shooting it in the field, like the camera crew, Pat and Dan and myself, we were all just so taken in this moment. And then when we were shelling the corn, I mean, they just had all these things. And then there's Robin kind of walking in and out of the scenes. And, it was there was a point where I was late for the shoot, and I was late for an aspect of it. And he's like, it's okay. We're used to it. A white guy showing up late or whenever they want, it's fine. And it was so well timed and so perfect that even our crew was just like, we couldn't believe it. You drop the hammer on everyone. You're such a joy to be around.
Very much.
Don't tell him that more than once.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Fair enough. Fair enough. I will say though, I had some of the white corn because I can't remember what I was doing. I think it was something for the Intertribal Agriculture Council, where Sean and Elena and myself were on a call, and we were talking about the Indigenous food movement for the Moses conference last year. And I had bartered with Chef Elena Terry, and she got me all these amazing ingredients like box elder syrup. We had some different corn flours from some tribes in Arizona, the olive oil from the Sakay Hills in California, some things from Red Cliff. But then I also had some Oneida white corn. And I made a friend this winter. He's a Ho-Chunk man. Bronson, if you're watching, hello. I miss you. I love you. But I had the chance to put together the most authentic version of corn mush that I could. And given that there's such a variation and contrast of culture, even between the Ho-Chunk and the Oneida people, I don't think that the Ho-Chunk people would consider themselves to be rooted in corn. It's very much more, wild rice based, from at least the perspective that has been shared with me. But to feed him that food, not as a token gesture, but as something to ground him and bring him into this way, it was maybe one of the most authentic ways I've said that I love you to a stranger, honestly, without having to say it. Because I knew all of the energy and time and care and love and emotion that went into just getting that corn to me. And it's so eye-opening. And man, oh man, if there's anything I can impress on viewers or people at home, if there's ever been a connection to your food, if ever once you've been moved to pieces by something that you've held or cooked or ate or experienced, like the Oneida white corn has done for me, you'll never look at food the same way again. Sharing that with me, opening up your lives to tell the story so that the people of Wisconsin can hear it in your voice, and letting a goofball like me come in and spend days with you and donating your time to this story. I think that as a member of the media, I've become very sensitive when I watch people want to tell the Indigenous story, the amount of time that it takes to capture it, and the amount of sacrifice that people like you have to make, or like Becky has to make, to try and constantly broadcast that message forward, when in reality, you're still doing the work for yourselves and for the people who are in your closest inner circles. And I can't thank you enough for the opportunity. I really can't. I am forever indebted to the wonderful people at Duck Creek of the Oneida and the Wolf Clan for life. I actually don't know anyone from any of the other clans there, so I feel okay saying that.
Oh, me, I'm from the Bear Clan.
Oh, damn it. Of course. I thought you were the one with the Wolf Clan license plates.
Nope.
Nope. Must have been Jen. But it's so powerful. I hope that through my work, we can continue to find ways to share the pieces of the story that you're ready to share. And I can do whatever I can to hold you in that space that I feel like you really held me. And that is the kindest, most sincere compliment and thank you that I think I can muster with my lips. I appreciate you. I love you. And I really appreciate that you took the time to share that story with us. You made yourself so vulnerable, and it's beautiful. Thank you.
We're happy to share it.
Oh, gosh.
Well, Luke, I can't really follow that up. I don't know what to say at this point, but I'm just I'll let you take it from here on out, Luke.
Okay.
Just gonna step away for a moment. Yeah, that was great. Obviously we appreciate, from a hosting perspective, there's a duality of what we do here is Luke, you tell the story in front of the camera and we have to tell the story behind the camera. And like I was saying earlier, there's a real weight on our shoulders to make sure we tell these stories properly, especially stories like this. It's so important. And I think when Luke and I tell stories, we're so invested in local food. We're so invested in this land, in this state, the people that make the food here. And the path we always come back to is the native traditional foods. And it is the ultimate local food. It is what was here before anybody else was here. And that is what those stories excite us, excite me. I'm sure Luke could say the same thing, excite us more than anything, hanging out with the different tribes. And we did an episode up in the Lake Lac de Flambeau, and we, musky underground. We stuffed it with wild rice and maple syrup, and we buried it. We wrapped it in birch bark and buried it underground and cooked it underground. And I think that experience was just so spiritual, going out and harvesting white rice and going through the process of cooking that muskie. What a powerful experience. And that is just the ultimate local food story you could tell. And I think these stories need to be told more often. And, but they also have to be told with a certain sensitivity. We did unfortunately it didn't make this episode because there was so much good content, but we went back to the Driftless Cafe and we had some white corn, and we ended up making a dish using the white corn. And part of me is glad that we didn't put it on television, mainly because I was kind of sensitive with somebody like Luke using those ingredients. Did he do it right? Are we doing this justice? Will there be any backlash there? And I think that's what we always have to consider when we tell these stories. Are this message, and or are we doing this message justice? So the dish was fantastic, and maybe at some point we'll release that segment as an extra piece online, because I think it was really fun. I think the dish was really great, but I know we're getting close to our time here, but just from your perspectives, with somebody like Luke or different chefs that aren't part of the tribe using these ingredients and trying to make these dishes that are so traditional to you, how does that make you guys feel? Is that something that is acceptable? Is that something that makes you nervous? How do you feel about that?
Go ahead, Jen.
How do we feel about that? Well, I have some mixed feelings about it, honestly. I think what you guys have done and what Luke has done has been super respectful, and you've honored the food and the ingredients, and you've done a great job with that. And I want to say Wisconsin Foodie has done phenomenal things for the food system in Wisconsin, just all around, not just this episode. Maybe this episode has a little more gravity to it, but every episode's great, and what you guys are doing for food in Wisconsin is awesome. I want to get that out.
No, thank you.
But I don't know. I think, for example, the fresh corn that Becky had in the basement last night, that's in jars, that's seed corn. You know, we don't hand that out real loosey goosey. You know, that only goes to people we know that are going to handle it appropriately. God forbid something like that end up in the hands of, you know, some giant seed corporation. So yeah, we are cautious. We like to share, but we are cautious.
Yep, and I agree.
Well,
So we don't have enough corn to feed our own. So it's hard for us to try to feed the world. We're just not there yet. You know, maybe someday we'll be there. But it's great for us to tell our story and have that education piece, and for other people to try the food that we grow so that they can become our allies.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be our eyes and our ears and our mouth when decisions are being made at the table where we don't even have a seat. So if we can convince people to stick up for us and say, hey, have you considered the tribes when you're making this decision of pipeline or this gas or whatever horrible situation is out there? Because we're forgotten, we're overlooked, where it's really easy for us to be quiet and silenced because of our political system and the system that we have to, you know, work within. So we like to use our foods as a way to bring people around to our way of thinking about things that are bigger than ourselves. You know, things that are bigger than Ohelagu or bigger than what's going on in the world.
Oh, I adore that. I adore it. You are never out of my heart, and you're never out of my mind. And I mean that. I mean that with all of it. I learned this year that 70% of the English language is object-based. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time focusing on objects and nouns. 30% of our language in English language is verb-based, meaning that things have action, and those actions result in the objectification of things and sometimes people. In the Anishinaabe language, 70% of it is verb-based. The corn is corning. The humans are humaning. We are loving. We are sharing. And I think if I can make that impassioned plea as a white man for people who are watching, look for the humans who are humaning, and they're doing a damn fine job of it. And pay attention to the corn that's corning and the trees that are treeing and all of those pieces in the world around us that make the world animated and connected. Oh my goodness. It's everywhere if you open your eyes. And the story of the Oneida white corn becomes a chapter, a very important chapter in a much, much larger conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Thank you.
You bet.
I look forward to seeing you guys again.
Definitely. I look forward to meeting you guys in person. So we will have to arrange that at some point. Maybe I'll come out in October and help you guys with the corn, because that's an experience that I definitely wish I would have been at with Wisconsin Foodie and that I missed. So thank you so much. Hopefully we'll be in touch. If there's anything we can do to help, please please email us, call us, anything we can do at all. With that said, one thing we like to do is wrap up each one of these with the trailer for next week's show. A little bit different of a subject matter, but still definitely worthy of your attention. So without further ado,
week on Wisconsin Foodie. We're at Ruby Coffee Roasters in Nelsonville, Wisconsin. Population 191 people. We try to, whenever possible, take the idea of specialty coffee and roast it in a way that is still approachable and sweet. So we're going to be doing a cupping. So what I'm gonna do is take a little sample out of the bowl. So I go.
How are you doing that, and why? Why are you doing that? Why is that important?
Trying to intimidate you.
Yeah, it's working.
The Del Bar is a supper club and steakhouse. The food is going to be top of line.
Oh, I adore this space. I love how cozy and comfortable it feels. It's got that steakhouse vibe, but it's classy. It's really, really classy.
This is a super busy kitchen.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you are banging food through here.
Even though we're just cooking a steak, we're trying to learn and do it better all the time, and nothing really has changed.
This is
The best of the best.
the best of the best,
This
which
is
is
the
why you've
Michael
been here so
Jordan of
long.
steaks, yeah.
This is the Michael Jordan of steaks.
Yes.
This is why I keep coming back to the Del Bar. This is so dialed in. It's so classic. It's perfect. This is a Wisconsin treasure.
There you have it. So next week we will be profiling Ruby Coffee and the Del Bar over by Mirror Lake. So really excited about that one. The Del Bar is I think Luke and I can agree that it's one of our favorite spots, and look forward to promoting those two businesses because they are super fantastic. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Robin, Laura, and Jen. That was incredible. I wish we had more time, and hope to see everybody soon. So have a great weekend, and love you all.